It is the largest structure ever built by human hands. A legend written in stone, a single continuous wall built to keep an empire safe. That is the story we know.
Hello, and welcome back to NEXTGEN Manufacturing. I'm Amelia, and I've just arrived in China to tell the true story of this wall. A story of not one wall, but many, and a 2,000-year-long war between engineering and destruction.
The story begins not with a great empire, but with chaos, a land of 7 warring states. For 250 years, these kingdoms fought an endless civil war, each building their own walls against the other, until one state and one man conquered them all. In 221 BC, Qin Shi Huang became the first emperor of a unified China. But in unifying the heartland, the new emperor faced a new, even greater threat from the north. The Xiongnu, a confederation of nomadic warriors, the masters of the steppe.
The Qin army was infantry. It was powerful, but slow. The Xiongnu were a force of nature. They lived on horseback.
The emperor realized he could not defeat the Xiongnu on an open battlefield. He needed to change the battlefield itself. He gave his general an unprecedented command: connect the old walls, create a single massive defensive line.
This was the birth of the Great Wall, but it did not look like the wall we know today. It was not made of stone.
The first wall was built with the only material available in the vast northern plains: earth. A technique called rammed earth. Layer upon layer of soil and gravel were poured into movable wooden frames. Each layer was then pounded for hours, compacting it into a solid, incredibly durable material.
You have to think of it as a massive, distributed factory. The wooden frames were the molds. The workers were the machines.
The logistics were a nightmare. Every tool, every grain of rice had to be transported hundreds of miles to the construction site, and the human cost was immense. It is estimated that up to 400,000 workers died building the Qin Wall. The strength of the wall depended on the right mix. Armies of workers were tasked with sourcing gravel from riverbeds. Different soils were mixed with precise amounts of water to create a durable, clay-like compound. An entire industry was created just to build and repair the thousands of wooden frames needed for the construction. The construction was an assembly line. Specialized teams performed a single task, allowing for incredible speed and efficiency. The iconic watchtowers were also built from rammed earth, rising as solid, powerful fortresses along the line. On top of each tower, a platform was built for the critical signal fires. The life of a wall builder was brutal, a cycle of back-breaking labor, meager rations and constant danger. But the speed was astonishing. At its peak, the workforce could build over a kilometer of finished wall every single day. After more than a decade of brutal labor, the first Great Wall was complete. And it was not long before this new defensive machine faced its first great test.
The wall's purpose was not to be an invincible barrier. The Xiongnu could still climb it. Its purpose was far more clever.
It was designed to do one thing: separate the Xiongnu from their greatest weapon, their horses. Once on foot, they were no match for the organized, heavily armed Qin army. It was a strategic success, an engineering solution to a military problem. But the dynasty that built the wall would not last. After the first emperor's death, his empire collapsed into civil war, and the first Great Wall, left without soldiers to man it or workers to repair it, was abandoned to the elements. But from the ashes of the Qin, a new, even more powerful dynasty would rise: the Han.
And the Han would look not just north, but west, to the fabled riches of the Silk Road. And the wall would be given a new purpose.
2 centuries after the first emperor, a new dynasty, the Han, had a new ambition: trade. The Silk Road, the most lucrative trade route in the ancient world, a river of wealth through a dangerous land. But the route was plagued by raids from bandits and rival nomadic tribes.
To protect this river of gold, the Han Emperor did something unprecedented. He extended the Great Wall deep into the Gobi Desert.
But this created a massive new engineering problem. In the desert, there was no earth to ram.
So Han engineers invented a new building material, using the only resources they had: desert sand and river reeds.
The technique was ingenious: a layer of woven reeds followed by a layer of gravel, compacted with water. The construction began with harvesting millions of reeds from the region's few rivers and oases. These reeds were then woven into massive, durable mats that would act as a kind of organic rebar. The process was simple but effective. First, a layer of woven reeds, then a layer of sand, compacted until it was as hard as brick.
The reeds acted as a binding agent, a natural fiber-reinforced concrete. It created a structure surprisingly resistant to erosion.
A new wall, for a new purpose, stretching for over 600 miles into the unknown west. And at its end, a new gateway to the west, the legendary Yumen Pass, the Jade Gate.
This wasn't just a military outpost, it was a customs station, a trading post, and the official entrance to the Chinese Empire for all Silk Road travelers.
The wall was no longer just a shield. It was now a tool to control trade and funnel wealth into the empire. But the most important part of the Han Wall was not the wall itself. It was the watchtowers.
These towers were more than just lookout posts. They were nodes in a sophisticated, high-speed communication network.
The garrisons used a complex code of smoke signals to transmit detailed information. During the day, they used smoke signals, which could be seen for miles in the clear desert air. The signal was relayed from tower to tower, a message traveling far faster than any horse. At night, they used fire, creating a chain of beacons that could stretch for hundreds of miles.
This system was the internet of the ancient world. A message could travel over 300 miles in just a few hours.
But this desert expansion created a new logistical nightmare, supplying the garrisons. Water was the most precious resource, more valuable than gold. Every drop had to be transported in, and for the watchtowers and forts, millions of bricks had to be manufactured and transported into the desert. All of this effort was to protect the immense wealth flowing along the Silk Road, chief among them, silk, and spices from the east, worth more than their weight in gold in the markets of Rome. In return, the empire received treasures from the west, like the prized glassware of the Roman Empire. For the soldiers stationed here, it was a life of boredom, loneliness, and constant alert. Small garrisons of a dozen men would live in these remote outposts for months at a time, a tiny cog in a massive machine of imperial defense and commerce. The system was effective, turning the dangerous desert into a controlled, taxable corridor, funneling the wealth of the world into the heart of the Han Empire. The soldiers were well equipped, with iron armor and powerful crossbows, far superior to their nomadic foes. Every caravan was inspected, its goods taxed, and its passage recorded. And the wall required constant maintenance, a never-ending battle against the desert itself. But like the Qin before them, the Han dynasty eventually weakened and collapsed into decades of civil war. And once again, the Great Wall was abandoned, left to be reclaimed by the desert sands. For 1,000 years, the wall would sleep, until a new, even greater threat would force China to build its final and most famous wall of all. After 1,000 years of silence, a new threat emerged from the steppe. The Mongols. Under Genghis Khan, they forged the largest land empire in history. The old earthen walls were no match for the Mongol war machine. They were swept aside. In 1368, after driving out the Mongols, the new Ming Dynasty was born, obsessed with one thing: never letting it happen again.
The Ming emperors decided to build the ultimate wall, not of earth, but of stone and brick.
This is the Great Wall we know today, the final and most famous evolution of the wall. The design was completely new: a stone foundation, a brick skin, and a solid rubble core. The construction began in the mountains themselves, quarrying millions of massive granite blocks for the foundation. And a massive new industry was born to manufacture the millions of bricks needed for the wall's outer skin. Its strength came from a secret ingredient: sticky rice. The amylopectin in the rice created an incredibly strong chemical bond. But the greatest challenge was not the materials, it was the logistics.
How do you transport millions of tons of bricks and stone up a 45-degree mountain slope with no modern machinery?
The first method was brute force, a human chain passing materials hand to hand up the mountain. They even used animals, herds of goats, each carrying a couple of bricks at a time. And they used simple machines, levers and pulleys, to move loads that men alone could not. The assembly began with a massive stone foundation, a stable base on the unstable mountainside. Next, 2 parallel outer walls were built with millions of kiln-fired bricks. The gap between the walls was then filled with rubble and earth, creating a solid, thick core, and the top was paved, creating a road wide enough for 5 horsemen to ride side by side. Inside the kilns, bricks were fired for days at over 1,000 degrees Celsius to achieve maximum strength. The battlements were an engineered defense, providing cover for soldiers while allowing them to fire on the enemy, and smaller watch holes and arrow loops provided further defensive positions. On the steepest sections, massive staircases were built directly into the wall itself. The construction required an army of specialized laborers, masons, carpenters, blacksmiths, and engineers, and the entire operation was protected by a massive standing army guarding the builders from attack. Even drainage was a critical piece of engineering designed to protect the wall from water damage. This was not just a wall, it was a sophisticated, multi-layered defensive system, an achievement of engineering built on the backs of millions. Forts like Jiayuguan, the first and greatest pass under heaven, these were not simple gates. They were complex, multi-layered defensive structures. Many featured an urn city design, a deadly trap for any enemy who breached the first gate. The gatehouses themselves were defensive towers, capable of housing hundreds of soldiers. These forts were permanent military bases, home to thousands of elite soldiers. They housed the cavalry units that served as the wall's rapid response force. And they were self-sufficient, with their own water supplies, armories, and granaries. The forts were placed at the most critical strategic points along the entire length of the wall. A fortress so perfectly built, legend says the architect's calculation was off by only a single brick.
After decades of construction, the final Great Wall was complete, a masterpiece of engineering.
This was a wall that could and did stop the Mongol armies. For over 200 years, it held the line.
But in the 17th century, a new power rose in the north, the Manchu. The wall was strong, but it was not invincible. It could be worn down by a determined siege. And the Manchu had a new weapon, acquired from European traders, powerful siege cannons. For the first time, the wall faced the threat of gunpowder. The Manchu army brought with them advanced siege engines. The fighting on the wall was desperate and brutal. The Ming soldiers were well equipped and fought bravely to defend the passes. The wall held. The Manchu army could not break through by force. But in the end, the greatest wall in history was not defeated by force. It was defeated by betrayal. A Ming general, fearing a new emperor, made a deal with the enemy. He opened the gates, allowing the Manchu army to pour into China and end the Ming Dynasty.
And with the Manchu now ruling all of China, the wall, a defense against the north, suddenly had no purpose.
It was stripped for building materials and left to crumble, a forgotten relic. For centuries, the wall became a free quarry for the local population. Its grand roadway, once patrolled by armies, was repurposed for farm equipment. In other places, it became nothing more than an enclosure for livestock. Vast sections of the wall vanished completely, erased by time and neglect. For centuries, the wall was forgotten. It was Western explorers who rediscovered it, not as a defense, but as a romantic ruin. But as a new, powerful China emerged in the 20th century, the wall was given its final and most powerful purpose.
It was no longer a military failure. It was reborn as a powerful symbol of the Chinese nation itself.
And this led to a new era of construction. Not of building, but of preservation, the Great Restoration.
But how do you restore a 2,000-year-old structure? The goal is not just to rebuild it, but to preserve its history.
The process begins with science, analyzing the original materials to understand the secret recipes of the Ming builders. Modern factories then recreate the ancient mortar, ensuring the repairs are as authentic and durable as the original. New bricks are manufactured to the exact specifications of the Ming Dynasty, ensuring a perfect match. And modern logistics solve the ancient problem of transporting materials up the steep mountains. The restoration itself is a slow, painstaking process, combining modern materials with traditional craftsmanship. Before any work begins, every section is mapped with 3D laser scanners to document its current state, creating a digital twin to plan the entire restoration with surgical precision. Drones are now used to survey the thousands of miles of wall that are too remote or dangerous for humans to reach. The chemical analysis is so precise, the modern mortar is a perfect match to the Ming Dynasty original. Ground-penetrating radar is used to find hidden weaknesses in the ancient foundations before restoration begins. The results of this new approach are breathtaking, a fusion of modern engineering and ancient craftsmanship, bringing a piece of history back from the brink of oblivion.
Our duty is not just to rebuild a wall. It is to preserve the memory and the spirit of our ancestors.
And this restoration has fueled a massive tourism industry, bringing millions of visitors to the wall every year.
In the 21st century, the wall's new purpose is economic and cultural, a driver of tourism and a centerpiece of Chinese national identity. NEXTGEN Manufacturing, bring historical stories to life. Which country and which great project should we deconstruct next? Tell me in the comments and subscribe to NEXTGEN Manufacturing to join the journey.